what to do when you've got a fear of being seen.
I have a fear of being too attractive.
A fear of being seen results in you hiding yourself.
How can I now see this part of me with love and compassion? I need to draw a line and say, well, I'm not going to give you any more of my energy. I don't want to waste my life anymore giving my energy to someone else.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of the What to Do When podcast. We are joined by our fantastic co-host, Kelsey. Say hello.
Hello, guys.
What was that? Hello, guys.
That was my,
Is your Aussie accent?
Yeah, I was trying.
We're super excited to be back in your ears, and we're really loving doing this podcast together and just sharing all the stuff with you guys. It's been so fun, and I hope that you're enjoying it too. It would mean the world to us if you shared this podcast with someone that you love and that you know would really benefit from it. Now, today we're going to be going into a topic that I think is very, very relevant, but appears in a lot of different ways, and that is what to do when you've got a fear of being seen. And this has been quite the Instagrammable fear to talk about, if you will. It's been something quite popular over the last couple of years in the self-development industry that has been talked about a lot, especially in relation to social media, business, relationships, your body. And so today, Kelsey actually brought this topic to the podcast as it's something that she's really navigating and experiencing, and it's definitely something that comes up for me often. But what we sort of discovered as we were talking about it more was that it does manifest for us in different ways, and it does come down to different root causes for us too. Now, I'm going to go in lightly with not a trigger warning, because I hate that word. However, I just want to let you know that we are going to be talking about cases of sexual abuse and sexual trauma. And if that's something that you've got experience with, if that's something that's close to your heart and that maybe is not going to be of best interest to listen to this episode for you, I just want you to look after yourself really, really well and to think about if this is going to really support you or if it's going to not support you. So have a think about that and make that decision from your heart. And if not, we'll see you in the next episode. But Kelsey, let's dive into our topic of the fear of being seen. And I would love if you could share with us, as you've been doing the inner work around this topic, what's been coming up for you?
Oh, it's such a good topic, and it is so deeply rooted for me. It's been something I've been working on a lot in terms of navigating my relationship with food and also body image. And a lot of the work I've been doing has been trying to uncover like why I'm feeling a certain way and where these beliefs are coming from, like what is actually like at the root of this. And the belief that has been coming up repeatedly is this fear of being seen. So I noticed this in like, I have a fear of being too attractive. I have a fear of that, like warranting like unwanted sexual advances or like unsolicited actions from men from past experience. Like I have evidence in my life of this happening. And so I think for me, a huge part of it is this like fear that if I am too attractive, I'll have all this attention that I don't want. And it in turn makes me feel like unsafe.
Totally. And I know that there's experiences like you hinted at that there's evidence to support that you know, there are cases of unsafe advances that might make you feel uncomfortable or bad things could happen. And that's really hard because your brain attaches to that evidence, right? It makes it make sense. It goes, this is unsafe. And with our fears, right? Our fears always tie into what experiences have shaped this fear and now formed a belief system. And that belief just sits in our subconscious, doesn't it? It sits there and it operates in our lives without us even knowing, right? So you might at home might have a fear of being seen. It might show up in different areas of your life. I think the root that we got to when we're talking about it was a fear of being seen results in you hiding yourself, playing small, and ultimately abandoning your sense of authenticity. And I'm curious, where does it impact your life so much?
One thing I will want to say is, I do want to say is with like limiting beliefs when they're formed, is that it's usually not from like a standalone event. It's from a series of multiple events in your life in which the emotions or the experiences weren't processed properly at the time. And so as the years went on and similar situations occurred, your brain will then use the past situations as evidence as to why this belief should be true. So it wasn't like there was one moment in time where something happened and I had this attention on me I didn't like. It was multiple experiences over the course of my life that taught my brain, that taught my body, and taught my nervous system that it wasn't safe to be attractive. It wasn't safe to have attention on me. And that is how a lot of those beliefs formed. So when you are bringing them up to work through them, it's important to realize it's never just one experience, but it's a collection of things in your life that have impacted you. And the way it shows up for me the most is probably like my body image. And the way I see myself is I'm really, really hard on myself, which stems from perfectionist things as well. But it's a feeling like I'm not good enough, like as I am. And then also I have spent like years and years and years trying to heal from a lot of the shame of being like a sexual assault victim and feeling like I was the one that kind of like caused that. Like my actions, I did something that attracted this in. And I think we spoke about it in one of the last episodes. Was probably one of the most like formative experiences for me was when I was bullied in fifth grade for being flat chested.
Your
So
boobies. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. And it is really hard when you get bullied about your body because you can't do anything to change it. It's like, oh, I can't change this part of my personality. Like this is literally just my body. And all I wanted that year was to be invisible, to have no one notice me, to like not be seen. But instead I had like nearly every guy in the grade bullying me, making comments about my chest, like every single day for a year. And it was just this like horrible experience that made me want to be invisible, made me want to not be special, not be noticed, not be attractive.
I can just see you trying to like sink into the wall. You know, have you ever had that experience where you walk into a room and it goes silent and you're like, oh my God, was everyone talking about me? Or like, do I have like freaking something on my face? And you just want to like sink back into the wall and like not be there. And I can hear that those experiences, and I'm laughing because I just have had, when you were talking in my head, I had like a series of unfortunate events.
Honestly.
But like a series of unfortunate events with similar themes happen, and then you form that belief system and those deep rooted fears. And for you, it was the bullying, it was the sexual assault, and you learned from that experience that being seen isn't safe. Being seen ends in pain and discomfort. And I guess the quickest way, like if we think about those experiences, the quickest way for you to get safe again, because we've got to remember that our nervous system, our unconscious mind, it's all trying to just get us back to safety. It's trying to keep us safe and keep us surviving. But it often thinks about it in and does things in a way that maybe doesn't make the most sense long term, but short term it solves the problem. You know, it's very much, I think if we think about the unconscious mind, it's very much like a Band-Aid solution to the problem that's right in front of us. And so for you, like with the bullying, it straight away was like, oh, being seen is not safe. Let's sink back into the wall. Let's try and be invisible. Let's develop this fear of being seen. And then I wonder, do you think that belief had cemented at a really young age and then was sort of reinforced throughout life? Or do you think it took multiple events and it sort of cemented later in life?
I think it started to cement at a young age. And for me, as I said, the fear with being seen, like I feel that the most in terms of like sex, love, relationships, my body image, that sort of stuff. So because I had a fear of being seen and because I had these experiences that taught me that I wasn't good enough, I then started to get into like really low self-worth relationships because I didn't think I deserved any better. And then the more time I spent in these like low worth relationships, the more evidence I had that it wasn't safe to be seen, that I wasn't good enough. And the pattern just kept like compounding and compounding because I was attracting in the same situations like over and over again, because that's all I believed I deserved. So it was quite damaging by the time I started to like really realize the impact it had. It was like the weight of all of this stuff just felt like so suffocating. And it's been really hard to try and work through that and bring it to the surface, because there's a huge part of me that still blames myself for every shitty relationship I've been in, for every sexual like assault or abuse I've suffered, for getting bullied. Like a part of me still thinks I did something wrong. And if I had just changed my behavior, if I had just changed my actions, then none of that would have happened.
Do you think it's like, I know that it really relates to body image for you. Do you think it's about changing your behavior, or do you think it's about changing your body? If you had a different body, if you look different?
Yeah, I think a part of me like can't deal with the weight of maybe it just being like something wrong with me internally. So I just project it all into my body, and like, well, if my body was better, then I would be better. But I think that's again like a band-aid. Like I'm afraid to like really look at the inside and like maybe what I could have done to do things differently. So I think I've put a lot of like this intense emotion onto my body instead, because I don't want to like deal with anything else.
So you, instead of actually going like, if we look at the bullying situation, if we look at sexual abuse and trauma, instead of actually saying like, hey, these actions that these people did, they weren't right. Like they were wrong. I didn't deserve that. Instead, in that moment, your inner child, in a sense, turned around and went, well, they're not doing it to anyone else. I'm the one that's here. It must be me. What is wrong with me? How can I be better? How can I fix myself? Whilst at the same time trying to stay safe, which I think where that sort of, we spoke a bit about it in our last episodes. You spoke about your journey with drinking and like being fun, Kelsey, and like you took not a long time, but I know that you really struggled to become more authentic and to actually embody who you are, and I really resonate with it too. Like I really struggle to show people sometimes the like actual very serious, emotional person that I am, rather than just showing people the bright, funny, bubbly sort of side of myself, you know? And I think that is where the fear of being seen can really impact you long term, is it really disconnects you from your sense of authenticity, from who you are, from your truth, from your intuition, like we spoke about in our last episode. And instead, your life becomes revolved around, how can I be better? How can I fix myself so that this doesn't happen again? And how can I also keep myself safe? So how can I also sort of blend a little bit into the wall, but at the same time be trying to be better? And can you think of how exhausting, I'm sure you experienced it, how fucking exhausting was it to be trying to stay safe and blend into the background and like belong with everyone and like be like everyone else, not stand out, be just like them, while at the same time having this huge pressure of something's wrong with me, I need to be better, I need to fix myself. And for you, it went straight to body image, you said.
Yeah. It went straight to body image and also self-development. Like I really got into the self-development industry like quite heavily, but because I had all of these like really intense like metrics for how to live, I was so hard on myself already that when I like got into this journey, it was like, oh, let me just now be even harder on myself, because now I realize all of like the shadow parts of me, all like the unconscious beliefs, like all of the, like now I'm like putting my life on a magnifying like glass and being like, wow, I suck. Like I should be doing all of these other things. Like I need to be doing breath work and journaling and meditating and like eating clean and affirmations. And it was so toxic. So there was a few year period where it became so much worse because I started working on myself and working to heal.
So fucking true. And we got to acknowledge how I think anything that you start doing from a place of I'm broken and I want to fix myself, whether that's going to the gym, whether that's self-development, whether it's learning a new skill or hobby or getting into a relationship again, anything that you start from that place of I'm not good enough, I hope this thing fixes me, anything is going to make you feel more shit about yourself. I think with going to the gym. This is how we see exercise addiction. We see eating disorders, which we experienced, both of us. And then with the self-development industry, we see, oh my God, I'm a sack of shit. I'm so terrible. There's all these things wrong with me. And it almost validates all those beliefs that you had about yourself. And I think this is a real important point to hit, and I'll be interested to hear you talk about it, is that our external world is a mirror for our internal world, right? And I think what that means is that the unconscious beliefs that we hold. So AKA, if you're walking around feeling like it's not safe to be seen, I'm not good enough, things are my fault, people don't love me, I'm unworthy of love. If you're walking around with these beliefs in your unconscious, so you're not necessarily actually aware that they're there inside of you, but they are. When you're walking around with that, the world will, not actually the world, you will look and create things, relationships, situations where that belief becomes true. Your brain is looking to validate what you believe to be true. It's looking to make you be right. That's where our ego likes to say, yes, I'm correct. Yes, I am not good enough. Yes, the world is not a safe place. Yes, all the men are horrible, and our brain looks to create that. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was probably the hardest part, coming to terms with that, because a huge part of doing this work is accepting responsibility for some of the things that have happened in your life. And I found that so triggering, because I was already putting so much blame on myself to then be like, well, it really was my fault. And I hate when people say you attract in the things that happen to you, because I think for me, it's just fuck off. I didn't ask for these things to happen, but they did. And the way I kind of see it is, when you do have these really low vibrations that you're feeling constantly, like low self-worth or insecurity, like you said, you do see the world in that light. And it also means it's harder for you to make decisions aligned with your authentic truth, because you're feeling so low all the time. And it doesn't mean that you deserve anything happen or you attracted it in, but the situations presented themselves because the boundaries weren't clear on you making decisions for yourself or from a place of low self-worth. The way I notice this the most is when I decide to drink. I don't drink much anymore, but I do drink sometimes. And I have noticed a very clear difference in having a hangover and having the mental noise when I go out drinking because I'm feeling really low, versus when I'm going out drinking because I just want to have a drink with my friends and have a good night. And I've seen such a difference in the way my night turns out, the way my emotions turn out the next day. And it's really opened my mind of when you're making a decision from an authentic place, more positive things manifest from that. But when you make decisions from these really low emotions, that's when unfortunate things happen. And it doesn't mean you attracted it in. It doesn't mean you deserved it by any degree. It just means that you weren't making a decision that was aligned with your highest, truest, authentic self.
Yes, that's so right. And it's almost like you can't, right? Because you're sitting in these, you'll call them, you'll call it low vibrational energy, and I'll call it, really painful emotions. You're sitting in in this space of negativity, pain, sadness, rejection, unworthiness. And if you think about you're in that space, what decisions do you make from that space? We got to remember that our feelings do impact our feelings and emotions, and the states that we're in, they impact the decisions that we make. And the decisions that we make then create our lives. They create what happens every day. They create whether we feel and end up in amazing relationships or we end up in relationships that are repeating patterns and cycles, And Kelsey, if you're open to it, I would love to dive into the aspect of going through sexual assault and trauma, and how that how that really made that fear of being seen so huge on a completely other level in terms of your body. Would you be open to sharing a bit about that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I spoke about kind of where it started with the bullying, and then the first relationship I got into, I already didn't really love myself a lot. I didn't really love myself at all at that point. And I was really struggling, and I wanted someone to save me, someone else outside of me to save me. And so I got into this relationship with this guy who ended up being sexually abusive. And that was my first experience with sex. So that's when I wasn't getting turned on, or like things weren't like vibing, and there was so much pressure to have sex. I kept thinking, something's wrong with me, and I'm like sexually like broken because I'm not getting turned on, and this isn't fun. So I carried that with me. And then a few years later, I had my drink spiked and I was date raped. And that was really difficult because I was drinking and I tried to turn to friends I was traveling with after. And a lot of people were like, oh, you probably just got too drunk. And so that was, yeah. So that was like one of the most painful moments of my life, because I was struggling with this thing that had happened to me, and the people I was with pretty much just like didn't believe me, or were like, you probably just got too drunk. Cause I did get too drunk, but I would fall asleep, like I wasn't going home with anyone. And so there was so much blame around that. Like, why did I take that drink? Like, how could I have been so dumb to take that drink? Like, I know better than this, like, is all my fault. Like, and to not have a support system there was really, really hard. And I internalized everything. Like, I was very avoidant, very closed off. And there's so much shame around what had happened, and feeling like I'm like disgusting, I'm like damaged, I'm broken, I'm never going to heal from this stuff. And so I didn't want to tell anyone, because I was so afraid that if they knew about it, they would judge me and I would be seen as less than them, or I would be seen as like damaged or disgusting because I'd had these things happen to me. And I was super scared to get into relationships because there was this like big thing that I didn't want to speak about. And I was like, well, what if they find out? What if they and I was in a relationship a few years after that. And I told my boyfriend at the time what my first boyfriend had done to me, with like the intense pressure around sex. And he did it like the next night, came home drunk and did the exact same thing that my ex had done to me, like completely like replicated the behavior. And it was, again, this like, whoa, how have I gotten myself into this position again? Like, this is all my fault. And that relationship was incredibly toxic. And when we broke up, again, it was this like huge self-abuse of like, how could I have been so dumb? All the signs were there, like, better. Like, it was so obvious. And it's been a hell of a journey trying to heal from all of that, because that stuff has been impacting me for the last like 15 years, from when I was like 11. I don't know if I can't do math. 17 years. Anyway, besides the point, but it's been like years and years I've been trying to heal from this, but it's like so deeply rooted, and it's been really hard to come to terms with the fact that I am partially responsible for having those situations in my life, because I was in such a low place. I'm not necessarily responsible for being in that low place, but because I was in that low place, I didn't know what I deserved. And so I didn't say no to those relationships. But a part of my journey in forgiving myself has been like, well, like, I was doing the best I could at that time. I didn't know any better. I didn't have this knowledge. I didn't have these people. I didn't have a support system. I didn't have someone to help me through it. And it was really unfortunate that these things happened. But like, all I have is love and forgiveness for that version of myself now, because like, she didn't know any better, and she couldn't, like, I couldn't have prevented that if I had tried. Like, I didn't have the capacity. I didn't have the support system. I didn't have the knowledge to make a better decision. And unfortunately, like, I had to learn from those experiences. But at the end of the day, I'm so grateful that they happened, because like, I grew, I learned, I evolved. And now I am like so clear on what I deserve. Like, I was celibate for like a year and a half because I was like, I'm not settling for less anymore. Like, I realize now that I've settled for less in the past, and now I won't do it again. And so those situations made it really clear to know that, oh, this is a really low behavior, low like worth area. And I'm not there anymore. Like, I'm all the way up here, and I'm never going back down there again.
Mm-hmm. Wow. You hit like 300 beautiful points in that. And it's like, what a crazy journey that you've been on, where you've gotten to that place where your standards are now so much higher because of what you know and experience. And I so agree with you. It's so awful when I hate when people say that, like, oh, those things happen to you for a reason. You've learned your trauma has made you a stronger person. And like, that's what makes me want to punch people in the face. I'm like, Kelsey, you did not deserve to have those things happen to you. There is no fucking way that you manifested that or that you called it in, you know?
Yeah.
But I also acknowledge that a huge part for you in that journey was taking a certain level of responsibility about the state that you were in and some of the decisions that you made, like, you know, getting drunk, right? Having another drink, having another drink, having another drink. Those are choices that you made because you were in such a low place and they, you know, but it still doesn't mean that you deserved what happened to you or that you created that, you know? And I like that you're speaking about taking some of that responsibility because I feel like that really heals the victim consciousness that we need to sit in for a certain amount of time after you are a victim. You need to be in that space. You were a victim. It did happen to you and it was not okay, you know, in no way, shape or form. But there can come a place where, and you might have experienced it, I certainly have, if I speak from my own experience, where I sat in that victimhood of what had happened to me, and something that was weirdly empowering was taking a little bit of responsibility for maybe some of the choices that I had made without trying to shame myself. And that is where I'm hearing, as you went on this journey, you learned the skill of self-compassion and you learned the skill of forgiveness. And somebody in another podcast said that you have to have respect for the past versions of yourself in order to grow and to move forward and to love yourself. And I think that's so fucking true what you said there. Like, you needed to have respect and love and compassion for those past versions of yourself who made some of those choices and was in serious pain, who was carrying this trauma.
Pain.
And you also hit another point there that you didn't have a support system. I know that for so many people, myself included, the most horrific thing is the fear that people won't believe you after sexual assault or abuse, and that people are going to blame you and say it was your fault, or no, it didn't happen that way. That is the number one fear, is that, you know, we might get blamed for what happened, or no one will believe us because in the past, like if I speak to my own sexual assault case, in the past I had slept with lots of people. I had, you know, been sexually promiscuous. I had hooked up with people at parties. I had hooked up with strangers. But the assault that I went through was not a choice. It was not okay. It was not something I consented to, you know? And the biggest fear was basically being told, oh, you're a slut anyway, you know, what's the difference? That's you. You made, you know, that was your fault. And I think that's a really fine line, what you're speaking about taking responsibility for some of your choices whilst not blaming or shaming yourself for them. How did you do that, Kelsey?
I mean, not easy at all. And there's still a part of me that is really hard on myself. There's still a part of me that blames myself. But I think one of the things I've learned, especially through our conversations, is that part of me is always going to exist. There's always going to be a portion of me that thinks it was my fault, but it's like, how can I now see this part of me with love and compassion? So instead of trying to, you know, heal from the trauma of what happened, it's like, well, how can I learn to love this part of me that is really critical and blames myself, and kind of switch the focus? Because I was in the victim mentality for a long time. It was like, I have all these reasons to feel like a victim. It is so hard to get out of it. And the journey to like working on loving myself meant that for me to stay in that victim mentality means I'm giving all of my power away. I'm giving all of my power away to these men and to these situations. And I don't want to do that anymore. I noticed it a lot. Like, I get really triggered around men, like in construction vehicles and work sites, from having to work on the road for 7 years in traffic management and having men stare at me with those seedy little eyes.
I remember you saying that you would wear, like, you know, denim shorts, and you would just be like, fuck, I should not have worn denim shorts, even though it's like summer, you know, and you want to be wearing shorts on this really hot day outside.
Yeah. And it's like, I was constantly getting stared at no matter what. I was getting guys approach me at night when I was out, like on the town being like, oh, you're the chick that works on the road. I recognize your legs. And it was like, what the hell? I have so many experiences of men coming up to me and making really inappropriate advances. And like the guys would be like, oh yeah, me and my mates perv on you all the time when we drive by. Like, and I'm working on the side of the road. Like I can't go anywhere, you know, like I can't hide. And I was working with Kyle, our good friend who does energy healing around this. And he was like, Kelsey, like, I understand obviously that you're getting triggered by this, but to allow it to affect you on this emotional level means that you're essentially giving those men a portion of, like, you're giving them power to affect your emotions, like to affect the way that you feel. And so trying to work on this meant I need to take my power back from these people. And yeah, I obviously am getting triggered, but there's a degree to where I need to draw a line and say, well, I'm not going to give you any more of my energy. I'm not going to give you any more of my emotions. Like, yeah, these things happened, but how shit would it be to spend my whole life like not living life to its fullest because of these things these immature boys did to me years ago, and I never lived my life to its full capacity because of those men? Like, fuck that. Fuck giving them any more power, because they've already taken away so much of my life in like the emotional weight of that. It's like, why would I give them any more? Like, it just is would be such a waste. And it's like, I don't want to give them anything else. You know, they took enough. They don't deserve anymore. And so it's easier said than done, obviously. And it's taken me years of working through this to get to like an okay place. And I'm still like struggling to work through a lot of it. But I guess what I keep coming back to is like, I don't want to waste my life anymore giving my energy to someone else, giving my life to someone else. And that manifests in every area of my life, and like why I make decisions, who I'm friends with, like why I got drinking. It's like I'm always evaluating, like, is this something I really want to do? Because I feel like I spent so much of my life caring so much what other people think. Like, I don't want to waste another second.
Wow. So so powerful that you said that. And I really see this adult you stepping into this experience and looking at what happened, like those guys perving at you and saying these really horrific things. I see you step from the child triggered energy into your empowered adult self. And what happens there, instead of you blaming you and pointing the finger at yourself, you actually turned around and said, no, your behavior is disgusting and it's wrong and it's not my fault. And I don't deserve to feel this way because of you and a complete stranger being this way. I don't deserve to live my life from this constant place of hiding my authenticity, hiding my sexy legs, if you will, and hiding, you know, not just who you are in your body, but hiding your beautiful heart and your sense of self. There was that moment for you where you decided that, where you switched. And this is the thing that you spoke about before, and why I love parts theory so much. There is always going to be a fucking part of you that gets triggered and feels triggered about this. Given what you experienced with sexual assault, with trauma, with abuse, with these experiences, there's always going to be a part of you that feels triggered around men, right? And I think so much of the healing work that we go through can be really damaging, because they say that we have to get rid of these parts of ourselves. They say that we're not meant to be triggered anymore, that if something similar happens, we're meant to be able to just get the fuck on with it and get over it.
Transcend
and I want to give transcend it, or clear it, or let it go, or, you know, burn it in a fucking flame of a fire, you know. And I think while that's beautiful and symbolic, I think it also sends a really harmful and damaging message that this part of us that does still get triggered, which is your inner child, who has real evidence of that was horrific and scary and painful, that part of you doesn't deserve your love. It doesn't deserve your support and acceptance. That part of you is never going to heal until it gets your love, until it gets your support, until it gets your acceptance. You're never going to be able to step into that adult empowered energy where you go, actually, no, this isn't my fault. Actually, you're an asshole. You know, I don't deserve that. You know, you'll never be able to step into that energy until you give that inner child, that triggered part of you, unconditional love and support, no matter what happens, no matter if they're there for the rest of your life, no matter if they show up at the most inconvenient of times and you get triggered and you maybe take a few steps backwards in your journey, if you will, until you decide to give that part of you room to live and to grow, and you stop seeing it as a disgusting, annoying, part of you that you want to get rid of, until that happens, you won't be able to step into that empowered adult self energy where you can access the truth and an alternate perspective on what happened, right? The truth of, I don't need to blame myself. This was your fault and it was not mine. And I'm not going to let you have this power over my life and the decisions I make anymore. Two fucking key things. Like if we could write a book, how to heal, those two things would be like top of the list. And I want to dig into that just really briefly. You started getting into all this stuff from going on the journey of healing your body image and your relationship with food. And we can see so clearly how it would make so much sense that you would have real struggles and challenges with your body. We were talking about the experience that somebody I know has had after experiencing really horrific things with men and with sex. They put on weight as a actual form of protection and to not be seen as sexy and, to not be seen as someone who was desirable. And they put up an actual physical front, which is not the case for everyone, but in this particular person, that was what happened. And I just want to talk about or ask you how that impacted your body image and your relationship with it.
As in the recent work I've done, or back when I was going through everything?
Yeah, probably both. Like back then when you were going through everything, and now you've almost accessed this crazy portal of healing through going into your body image and then actually having it come about as this huge thing of fear of being seen, all this past trauma.
Yeah, so up until recently, like every time I looked in the mirror, I would just rip into myself, like absolutely just slaughter myself. Like I could think of a million things that were wrong with me. I was constantly critiquing myself. I was constantly comparing. Like every time I would see like chicks out, I'd be just comparing myself and just bringing myself like really low, and also blaming my body because I wanted it to change. I wanted it to look different aesthetically. And when it wasn't changing, I was like, well, this is all your fault. Like you're to blame. Like, why can't you just help me out with this one thing? Like, why are you always betraying me? And I was so angry with my body and just like distrusting of it. And I didn't like it. I didn't love it. And it has been the theme of this year, is to heal my relationship with food and my body image. And it has been so fucking painful. It is not easy working on the really core wounds that you have. And it meant that my eating disorder actually came back for a bit. And it meant that this like really intense criticism came back for a bit because I was consciously choosing to bring these really dark parts of me to the surface. Because you touched on it earlier, but the thing with allowing yourself to be seen doesn't necessarily mean like, I want everyone to see like the beautiful, authentic parts of me. It's like also allowing the parts that you want to stay hidden to be seen. And that's the hardest part, is that being seen means like allowing like the ugly parts of you, the dark parts of you, the parts of you that you don't like and you feel intense shame about. It means seeing those as well. And that is where the real work comes in, because that shit is so hard.
Oh my God, yes. Even in our friendship, I remember that there were parts of me that I did not want to show you, and I do think when we talk about, like, obviously fear of being seen has a huge impact on your relationships with yourself, but also with other people, your level of both emotional and physical intimacy with friends, with partners, with lovers, with family, with food, with all these things in our lives. But it does have a huge impact on your authenticity and who you show to yourself. But what a beautiful point that it's about showing the shadow and the light. It's about building the courage to be vulnerable in these parts of you, like you spoke about, right? That part of you that may always exist, may always get a little bit triggered around men, showing that to somebody. It's the parts of me and you, I'm sure, who hate their body, who are always probably going to find ways to bully and belittle the body, and that have struggle in a relationship with food sometimes. That there are these parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily like and love, and that's really hard to get comfortable with, isn't it?
Yeah. And what I will say is like, I didn't just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to like heal my relationship with food and body image. Like, I have known that this has been an area I've wanted to like work on for years, but I have not been ready to. It has been too painful, too triggering. So, for anyone listening who is thinking about like working through a really painful part of you, for one, wait until it feels right. Like, don't push it because you're dealing with your nervous system here and you're dealing with bringing up really painful things. Like, it'll come up to the surface when it's ready. So don't force it. And secondly, I would highly, highly recommend working with a coach or some sort of support system, because it is like such a core wound that it isn't something you want to be navigating alone. Like, it is so crucial to have someone there to help you through this. Because if I was doing this on my own, it would be so much blame coming up. And I would just be like, Kelsey, you're so dumb. You're so stupid. Because that's the pattern I fall into, is to blame myself. So I actually, the last 3 months I've been working with Kyle in like a coaching program, and I made the focus, my intention of the 6-month healing was to like heal my relationship with my body and food, because I was like, I'm finally ready. I've done a lot of like the inner work to get to this point. Like, I brought a lot of it up to the surface. Now it feels like too much to do on my own. So now I'm going to like work with a coach for 6 months. And even in the last 3 months, like the transition I've seen, like I actually like look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, you're all right, you know? And that for me is huge, because 3 months ago I was ripping into myself. And now I look in the mirror and I'm like, not half bad.
I love that. And I think that's the essence of it, right? I think when we're going through healing body image and relationship with food, and even just embarking on a journey of, say, self-love, I think we think that there's going to be a point that we're going to hit where we're just going to be like, I love myself. I love my body. I love how it looks. And look, there are some people who maybe that is their experience. And I just got to put like 2 hands up and say, that is not fucking mine. And what you said there right then of, yeah, like what you said there right there was so perfect, of like, not half bad. That was perfect, right? Because it's not like, oh my God, I'm in love, but it's a huge difference from the bullying and criticism and ripping yourself apart that you would have been. And again, it speaks to the full acceptance, the place and space of acceptance that you have to get to, that there may always be parts of you that struggle with this, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you are unworthy. It doesn't mean that you're broken. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to live the life that you want, right? Giving those parts of ourselves, like the parts that have had eating disorders, the parts that do rip your body apart, they're doing that. Those parts of us exist because they're created from spaces of trauma and real pain. And they're doing that for a reason. And to give them unconditional love and acceptance, to actually start to support those parts of you, has led, I think, both you and me to spaces where we can look in the mirror now and go, not half bad, babes. You're actually looking pretty fly today.
5 out of 10.
5 out of 10, right? And like,
I'll take
so
it.
we're being very sarcastic here, but I think anyone at home will know what a fucking massive difference that will be, to go from a place of looking in the mirror and hating yourself to getting to a space where you're like, yeah, not bad, you know, to get to that more neutral space, which I think is a really powerful place to get to, of kind of body neutrality rather than body love or body positivity. It again acts as that thing of accepting that I don't have to love my body, but I don't have to hate it either. You know, here's a road that we could go down that might actually be achievable and attainable, and your life is going to feel so much better for it, you know?
Totally. And you do have to think about like the long game, you know, it's like, you're not going to change in a day, but the way Kyle explained it to me was actually really beautiful. Like, so say every day of the year, I'm thinking like 10 negative thoughts a day about my body. Doing the work, it takes time and it takes commitment. And like, there's going to be days where you don't, you know, work on yourself, whatever, but like it's, you don't see change overnight. And even if after 3 months, I was saying 7 negative thoughts a day to myself about my body, going from 10 to 7 would still be huge. Would still be huge.
Snaps for you. Yeah.
And like 2 months later, maybe I'm at 6, and like maybe a couple years later, I'm at like 3, but it's like, you don't notice the difference all at once. It's like really slow incremental changes until at one point you look back and you're like, wait a second, like I'm not ripping into myself anymore. Like when did that happen? And there's not a specific point, but it just takes
Mm.
like continuing to work on it, to continuing to love yourself and to bring that stuff to the surface. And it's never going to happen overnight. Like it genuinely just takes commitment and patience.
Yeah, that's so true. Kelsey, to wrap up this amazing convo, I want to ask you a bit of a hard question, and you can ask me
Ooh.
too if you feel so called. I think it's actually a good one, because what we've really got into at the essence of this conversation here is when you have a fear of being seen, it's worth exploring the part of yourself that you're afraid to see, the part of yourself that you feel shame around, whether it's the part that's gone through sexual abuse and trauma, like Kelsey spoke about, or been bullied in high school, or had an eating disorder, or who was, in really terrible patterns, or who drank a lot. What are, like, if you're experiencing this fear of being seen, I think if you feel safe and resourced to, and you want to take these next steps, the next steps is to look at what parts of myself do I not want to see, and what parts of myself am I struggling to accept. And I want to ask you that question, Kelsey, at the moment, as you're on this, you're literally going through this journey, and there are so many parts of ourselves, so many truths that we don't want to admit exist, right? So many truths that we hide from, and they impact the level of authenticity that we're able to show up into the world with, and that impacts our relationships and how much love we feel. So I'm curious, Kelsey, what part of you are you struggling to see or to accept at the
Oh,
moment
I
that you're
mean,
working with?
I have a few. Definitely. There's a part of me that likes binge eating or like using food for comfort and like really leaning on that. A part of me that has really like deeply embedded scarcity mentality, or like just really like struggles to give and receive. I guess another thing is like a part of me that like hides my femininity. Like I try and like, play into this masculine energy all the time. And a huge part of me wants to be feminine, but it's just like really struggle to show it.
Yeah. So
And then
with
even
that,
like, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, with that struggle with accepting the femininity and showing that, and being more masculine, like, what are you doing? And I want to give people an insight at home. Like, what are you doing to accept that part of you more and to give that part of you unconditional love? Like, what does that look like for you?
Some of the things I've done are just like really small actions to kind of bring that part of me out. So like wearing a bit more jewelry, or just like wearing a more feminine top. And
Yeah, I just want to shout out today, everyone, if you don't see the video, Kelsey's wearing a boob tube. And I was like, damn, queen, hello.
And that was honestly what went through my head before this, because I was going to put on a baggy, like double XL t-shirt. And I was like, no, you're going to look nice today.
Yeah.
And it is just really small steps. And just when I feel that part of me, just sitting with it, allowing it, and being like, oh, I can feel the resistance here. Like, I'm not going to put on like a full dress and heels, but like, let's just put on this top. Like, let's just meet in the middle. You can still have on your baggy, like denim shorts. Like, we'll meet in the middle here.
That's lovely. Like
So
a
it is.
beautiful compromise. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? Let's hear yours.
I'm trying to get clear on one. I think for me, there's definitely, I'm struggling to see the part of myself that, and I'm just going to be super open here, because I don't think this person is listening, but anyway, the part of me that's really struggling in the relationship with my biological father and is very lost and confused in that. And it's even right now, my hands are sweating because I don't want to admit the truth about how I feel. And that's really hard for me to admit. That's the part of myself that I'm probably struggling to see at the moment. And I think that theme of like, what is your truth? How do you actually really feel about something? I think that's a big part of this work, is we put on our blinders and we just get on with life. We go through the motions and we refuse to feel, oh my God, like my career path that I'm going down, I actually don't want to be doing it anymore. Or the business that I started, I don't want to do it this way anymore. It just sucks. Or the relationship that I'm in, that I've developed, I don't feel the way that I felt anymore. And yeah, I think for me, that's showing up in like, I'm struggling to accept the parts of myself that have changed. I'm struggling to allow I'm struggling to allow the victim inner child energy of growing up without a father. I definitely sat in that victimhood for a really long time. I'm struggling to actually let that part go because it's not here anymore. There's not a part of me that wants and needs a father. And I can't believe I've gotten to this place where I'm like, I don't think I need this anymore. I can't believe that. But I have massive resistance from my inner child to actually letting that part go. And I don't know what my life will look like. I don't know who I will be on the other side of who is Kathleen without daddy issues? Who is that? So I think that's a part of me that I'm struggling with at the moment, and to support myself in it and to love and give unconditional love to that part of myself. All I'm trying to do is to sit with the discomfort of that and to let it come to the surface, to actually say yes to my own honesty and truth. It doesn't mean that I have to do something immediately with it. It doesn't mean that I have to change my life overnight, but just sitting with the discomfort of admitting the truth about how I feel to myself has been really scary and really hard, I'm going to be honest, but it's been really powerful. And it's allowed me to see that part of myself, and it's blowing my mind a little bit. And yeah, I think for anyone listening at home who's maybe resonating with changing and like struggling to accept those changes and to let the change happen and to see the parts of yourself that have changed, I think that's just the most important thing. Whether you feel maybe your relationship just isn't for you anymore, or again, the job that you've worked the last 5 years at to get yourself to this place and you've gone, oh my God, I don't actually want this anymore. Admitting that truth to yourself, I think, is the first and biggest step, and just sitting with that discomfort of that. Again, no pressure. You don't have to do something with it, right? And that's such a key for both Kelsey and I, what we've been struggling with. You don't have to do something massive from this place. You just have to let it come to the surface and see that part of you. And when you do that, I think you meet that fear that you do have of being seen, and you heal that bit by bit by bit by giving your brain new evidence that if I see this part of me, nothing bad's going to happen. Because at the moment in your brain, there's probably, if people see this part of me or if I see this part of me, something bad's going to happen. And it's up to you to rewrite that in your relationship with yourself first, and then going out to other people, which Kelsey is now doing in a relationship with a new person. And I feel like timing has been serendipitous because of this, because you've been working all this. It's finally allowed you to actually meet someone who is worthy of you and who treats you fucking well. And you said something like, how do you feel in that relationship with him in terms of body image and fear of being seen?
I feel so secure. I feel so safe. I feel beautiful all the time. And it was so serendipitous, the timing of like, I did so much work on myself to get to a place where I would be ready to receive a deserving relationship. And then I literally put pause on everything in my life because I was putting so much pressure on myself. I paused everything in my life, took the time to rest and really go inward. And it was when I got to a level of deservingness for this relationship and then physically created space in my life for a person, then the guy showed up. And it was been the most like easy, seamless process. Like I've never felt so just like natural. It's just felt effortless and easy. And it's like, I've never thought I would speak about this, like about a relationship, but it really has been just like such a beautiful experience. And it's made me so proud of myself because of all the work I did to get to this. Like, I know I worked hard for this relationship. Like the last 5 years I've been doing this work, like got me here. And it was because of the work that I did, because of the steps that I took, the accountability I took, that like manifested this like beautiful relationship into my life.
And I'm so proud of you too. And it is such a homage. Is that the right word? I don't know, but a homage to your courage and your willingness to go into this stuff and to believe that you're worthy and deserving of a better life, and that you're worthy of love, and that you deserve love. And the standards that Kelsey has are so beautiful. for the people that she lets into her life. And I admire them so much. And I love you so much. Thank you for sharing with us that pretty fucking deep fear of being seen and where that came from and what you've been doing to heal. And I hope you at home have looked after yourself throughout this episode. I know we touched on some intense, heavy subjects. And as always, if you ever need any support, Kelsey and I are both here. You can reach out to us on social media. Our DMs are always open. And I also hope that you go and reach out to coaches, counselors, therapists, family, friends, and go and get that support that you deserve. You know, we are all worthy and deserving of love and of good things. What happened to you, you did not deserve. You did not manifest. It was not your fault. And there's that little bit of taking some responsibility to empower yourself to heal and to make some different choices. And I hope this convo has supported you in that. So we love you. Kelsey, is there anything you want to say before we close?
No, you nailed it.
Yes, baby. We love you so much, and we will see you next week, next Monday morning, early in your ears, and we can't wait. And don't forget to submit your what to do when question if there's something that you're struggling with, if you are confused and lost in life and you would love Kelsey and I to jam on it and give some unsolicited advice or maybe offer some coaching, who knows, and share our own experiences. And yeah, I think the goal of this podcast is to just help people feel a little bit less alone in their struggles and in their challenges. And that's why I love when we get to cover those topics of what you're struggling with so that you feel less alone in it, because that's the most painful place to be, is I feel alone. I'm the only person going through my pain, when I guarantee that there's probably a ton of people out there who are going through something similar. And to connect in that pain is so powerful. So have the most beautiful day, and remember, you are doing enough, you are being enough, and you are worthy and deserving of love. We'll see you next time.